Hey everybody, today Rahdo runs down the latest trio of Unlock escape room in your home games, the Night of the Boogeyman, Scheherazad's Last Tale, and Expedition Challenger. Together they are the exotic adventures, and that's certainly true. I mean, these are very far out adventures. This one I would say is the most grounded, but at the same time it's the most charming and whimsical. It is basically set in a small child's bedroom who is having a hard time sleeping because the boogeyman keeps showing up. And so we promised, hey, we'll stay here and protect you all night long from the boogeyman. And when you know, the boogeyman is real and there's multiples. And so we are, true to form, trapped in a room trying to deal with a whole series of puzzles that are the means by which we can defeat these nightmarish, creatures that are of his dreams. Although the way it's presented, you could see how, well, was that really a scary thing, or was it just an ordinary everyday thing that his imagination allowed him to think it was really scary? And did we actually defeat a monster, or did we just help him, in his imagination do it? Cool, fun stuff, and absolutely wonderful, charming presentation. I was going in assuming we were going to like this one the most for two reasons. One, it is the easiest of the three. It only has a 1 out of 3 difficulty. This is a 2 out of 3. This is a 3 out of 3. And also, just that really lovely, charming, and evocative theme. And the art is lovely throughout. Absolutely stellar presentation. One of the best they've had. And they've always been really great presentations. However, as it turned out, we liked it the least. For reasons that are really unfortunate, because there is a cool new thing. The developers of Unlock are not resting on their laurels. They've done some new stuff. And this is maybe the most unique one so far because, how would I describe it? Again, I don't want to spoil anything here, but it brings party elements into the game, might be a good way to put it. And what I mean by that is there are several games out there where players are trying to do some kind of task together, or they're all competing to do it the best, and the game will throw kind of real world restrictions and limitations on them they have to deal with. I mean, probably some of the best examples are actually from Escape Curse of the Temple, which is a real-time dice rolling cooperative game where we're trying to escape a maze by rolling dice, but every once in a while you'll get cursed, and that makes you do things like, well, I don't want to spoil them because, they may or may not appear in here. But one that doesn't appear was, in that game, hey, you're rolling dice so fast, if a die ever rolls off the side of the table, you've lost that die forever. That's like a little curse. And suddenly you have to roll really carefully and gingerly because in that game, it really changes things up. And it's a restriction you live under for a while. This game does that at several different moments. And while some of them are cool, there was one we hated. And it's interesting, it's the first one you run into, and it's the one that lasts the longest, because eventually you get past these, and then you can go back to playing normally. It basically, I won't say what it is, but it introduced an element of memory, where we couldn't rely on looking at cards anymore. Right, okay, this is a game where we have all these things, and we're trying to put them together and figure out, right, how does tab A fit into slot B to open door C? And now we can't look at these anymore. We have to rely on our memory to know what it was, and we hated this so much. Now, to be fair, Jen and I hate it whenever any game throws memory in, and we were predisposed to like it. If you like memory games, maybe you'll think, hey, this is really cool. Or if you're playing with a big group of players, instead of just playing as a 2-player game, maybe that won't be as much of a problem because, hey, with more people, okay, we can kind of share the load of having to memorize stuff. But we found it really actively unpleasant. And we eventually got to the point after, I don't know how long, 15 minutes of having to live like this, where we said, okay, to heck with it, we're just going to ignore this rule and go back to playing normally. And it really put us in a sour mood for the rest of it, which is really a shame because there's so much really cool stuff in here. Really great integration with the app, lots of cool ideas, great presentation, a wonderful story, super charming, but really, I don't know. If you're like us and you absolutely despise memory elements, I would almost suggest that when that moment comes up, and it comes up fairly soon, fairly early, and you realize, oh, this is what we have to do, I would almost suggest ignoring it and saying, yeah, we're not going to do that. It won't hurt the game, other than it'll make the game easier, but by easier, I mean more pleasant to play. All the other ones I think were really cool and were really timed and worked really nicely and enhanced it. And it's just a shame that the worst one was the one that lasted the longest at the first game, and it kind of casts a pall over the rest. So that's just a warning. Going into Night of the Boogeyman, that first out of the game challenge it throws your way, I wouldn't blame you if you ignored it. And I think if you did, you'd probably have a more fun time. But anyway, but otherwise, it was really neat. And I love the ideas here. I thought there was some very cool stuff. Although there's one other thing about this as well. The Unlock series has always stood out because it's driven in large part by a smartphone app. You can get a lot of really interesting and unique gameplay with just a deck of cards without having to create situations where players have to destroy things or modify things or alter things. So Unlock have always been 100% easily resettable, and so they make great gifts, fantastic gifts. I'm planning on giving these to a friend as a thank you in a week or so when I see her next. But this one introduces the first time, I'm not going to say it's a destroyable thing, but I will say at one point there is a card that when you look at it and you get it and you say, oh, what's the clue going to be? It is actually a... So, I'm sorry, that's kind of a spoiler. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I should have just actually backed up here. Yeah, you know what? Okay, folks, I just snipped out a whole big spot of stuff that's a bit of a spoiler for this that I think is important. It's a minor spoiler. It might bother somebody. I will take that bit of the video and put it at the end. Suffice to say, it was surprising that there is an element of this game that now has kind of sort of a little bit of a, not exactly a permanent change, but it gets a little bit closer to exit. It doesn't ruin it. This is still something that you can give away as a gift. You could repackage it. But if I gave this to you, you would know something about it because of something we have done inside this box. It's not, it cannot be truly 100% reset. It's still 100% playable if I give this as a gift, which I plan to. But so that's happened. I'll say what it is if you don't mind the tiniest little bit of a spoiler when we get to the end. But anyway, so that's it for Night of the Boogeyman. Let's talk about Scheherazades. Well, first of all, one thing, this is certainly not woke at all. Which again, maybe that's not a problem for some people, but it's certainly a story of its time, which is not to say, our modern life, but it's kind of a little misogynistic at points, and that kind of Jen was a bit taken aback by that. We didn't expect that, and it didn't need to be that way. I guess, again, it's being true to the source material of, 1001 Tales of Arabian Nights and, the Alibaba and the 40 Thieves and all that. But it was like, really? Really? You could have written that a different way and it wouldn't have to, and that's what this card looks like? Really? Okay. It's not a game breaker in any way, shape, or form. We still enjoyed it. It was just kind of surprising. And it kind of felt out of place. It seemed like, that would have been something I would have expected to see happen a decade ago. But anyway, it's a minor thing. It might be an issue for some folks. It didn't directly detract. It was just weird that kind of stuff was in there. But as for the game itself, it was very, very cool. And certainly one thing I'll say for all three of these, this is pushing the app integration more and more and more, especially the third one. I think the majority of the puzzles now maybe exist in machine form, which is to say you see the card and you look at it and maybe there's some information on the card, but it tells you type in this number and go to the smartphone because that's where you're really going to do stuff here. This one especially, but in this one there are a lot more of those machine ones than ever before. Don't get me wrong, I think that's fantastic, but it might mean for some people that Unlock is getting farther and farther away from something that they really enjoy because, there is kind of a pushback amongst some board gamers of, I want digital out of my games. Unlock is always, unflaggingly warned, no, we're a digital integration, war's on its sleeve, they love it, but this one's pushing it further than ever before. That's true for Scheherazade, definitely true for Expedition. Scheherazade's Last Tale is the medium difficulty, and I guess that's fair. And I should say, Night of the Boogeyman, which is supposed to be the easiest, of these three, we had the hardest time with this because of that thing I complained about a little bit ago with the memory. Otherwise, this might have been the easiest. I'm not sure. I would say these are kind of comparable. But interestingly, I'll get to in a second, this was the easiest. The one that's the hardest, the 3-star, we had very few problems with this one, surprisingly, for reasons I'll get to when I talk to it. But anyway, Scheherazade was interesting. Like all of them, it has a really great sense of scope and scale. Also is becoming more and more the case. I think this is less compatible for large groups of players because it's much more on rails and you don't generally have a whole bunch of different puzzles. I think there's no going back. I think as these things become more and more adventure tales rather than escape room puzzles, they're just going to be better and better suited for just 1 or 2 or maybe 3 players. I think that's just the way it's going. This is not a problem for me and Jen at all. We only ever play them 2-player, and quite frankly, it makes them better for us because, hey, if it's designed for really only a couple of players to look at it, we'll have an easier time getting through. We won't be so frustrated. That said, we did get super frustrated, and this is the first time this has ever happened. We got to a spot where, okay, there's nothing else we can do. We have no idea what to do here. Okay, let's start looking at hints. Okay, all right, there's no hint for this one. I was shocked how many cards have no hints, where they just say, there's no entry for this card. There's no entry for this card. There's also no entry for this card. And there's no entry for this card. I'm like, what? And this one card's entry is, well, you'll know it when you see it, or something like that. And we just got completely stuck. And we eventually checked we tried to get a hint for every single card we had access to, and we were still stuck. And we realized at this point, oh, the game is unwinnable. We literally cannot win. We can't figure this puzzle out. And the game has no interest in actually helping us here. There's no clues at all. And eventually, we literally just started looking at the backs of cards, hoping we wouldn't spoil it too much for ourselves, and we'd see something that like spurned an idea. And we did, and because of that, we were able to get through that one, total showstopper. Which, to be fair, after we saw, we're like, oh, yes, okay, we should have thought of this, because it basically made a reference to something earlier, and that, it was really kind of outside, and it was clever, it was cool. I liked how it was done, but I hated that the developers of it totally forgot to put in any kind of clue how to help you with that particular spot. And they had an obvious place where they should have put a clue, and there was literally no clue. That was very bad form. It's amazing to me. I mean, I think when I talk about these, for the most part, since I can't talk about the things we like, because those would be spoilers, I end up talking about the things we don't like. But that really kind of put us in a bad mood again. This is not fair. There should always, it should be a rule. There should always be not only just a clue, but a solution. That's something I've noticed with this, and maybe this has always been the case, compared to Exit, where Exit will always just come right out and tell you, look, if you can't figure it out, here's the answer, so you can move on and still have a good time. There were several times in here where, okay, we got to use the clues, and all they'll do is give us a clue. They will not tell us how to solve this. And so we're going to be stuck here for 3 or 4 minutes until we figure this out. I don't like that. I think that's a mistake. I think there's no excuse. And again, it's once again why I love Deckscape the most, because Deckscape is the most designed to just have fun and not punish you. These can be very punishing in ways because of, in my opinion, incomplete implementation. I'm sorry, developers, I still like them on the whole. We still are happy we play them. I'll still play the next group when they come out. But these are just problems. Why do these problems keep happening, Space Cowboys? Why? So anyway, so that's really, at this point, and we just did this a couple days ago. That's the main stuff I remember about Scheherazade, was when they wouldn't give us any clues, or they'd only give us crap clues and not give us the answer. And, that's crazy. And the misogyny. Okay, whatever. Sorry, folks, I am a, PC... Oh, social justice warrior. Yeah, I'm a total SJW. I'm wearing it on my sleeve. There were some questionable choices there. But anyway, now let's talk to the last one. This was my favorite for one reason in particular. It, more than any other, I've talked about this in the past. Unlock is getting more and more and more like the old point-and-click adventures of old. This one has gotten the closest yet, because there's a new type of card. It doesn't say it until you put it out there on the board, but it's completely a new type of card, and it's a card that works because of, this never before has the app been as integral. Because, should I tell you this? I don't want to spoil it, because it's cool for you to experience this stuff, but there was a problem. Basically, at one point during, maybe, I don't know, a third of the way into Expedition Challenger, maybe not even that, maybe even more like a quarter, 20% of the way in, an event, there will be a thing that you come across, an event will happen that 100% changes the rules of everything. And they kind of just do it without telling you that the rules have changed. And Jen and I, we then played for like probably another 15, 20 minutes, assuming the old rules applied, not realizing that they didn't. And when we eventually realized that, we went from, man, this is really, come on, this is way too unfair and unpunishing. It's almost like they changed the, oh. They've totally changed the rules. Wait a minute. The old rule no longer applies. Why didn't they tell us this? I'm not going to tell you what. You'll know it when you see it. Or maybe you won't. Maybe you'll be like me and Jenny. You'll just assume, yeah, the old rule still applies. Folks, in Expedition Challenge, when you get to a spot where, wow, I've never seen them do anything like this at all. This is so out of the box. This totally changes our relationship with the app, which is great. I love that they do this. Bear in mind, admittedly, with the benefit of hindsight, the obvious ramification for the standard rules of how all escape room games work, those rules no longer apply. And if you understand that, I think, like Jen and I, once we realized that, we might have had more fun with this than any other Unlock game ever. Because it jettisoned some really stupid rules that I vehemently despise, that all escape rooms do. And it just opened it up, made it such a joy to play. And I just wish I wish we could have gotten to that joyous state a little bit sooner if they'd actually told us that the old rules no longer apply. Again, I'm not going to say what, or you know what, I will say what. When we get to the minor, I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not going to tell you how any puzzles work. I'm just going to tell you what these events are so you can have a smoother experience. I'll talk about that in a bit at the end. But otherwise, so because of that, we really enjoyed this. Oh, another thing I should say too, and I think this is true for all three of them. I complained in recent Unlock blatherings. I don't know what you call these. I guess these are Rahdo reviews, but not really because I don't know, whatever. I'm just going to keep calling them rundowns because that's the terminology. But anyway, I've complained in recent rundowns from escape rooms about the final boss mentality they have where, we got to put our biggest, toughest, scariest, nastiest, trickiest, hardest thing at the end. None of these do that. And I love it. I'm so appreciative of that for all of them. Now, they do all have weird, unusual things at the end, but they're not brainstorming or brain burning exercises in frustration. They're just like, whoa, really? Okay. I think I know what to do. Well, wow, that was a really nice thing. Although, that said, Jen, we were both kind of shocked. This is kind of an anticlimactic ending, unfortunately. It's like they needed one more card to kind of wrap things up instead of it just like spontaneously stopping, which has happened with other unlocks as well, where it's just like, okay, and is it over? Oh, I expected after I did the thing, a thing to happen, and it doesn't happen, and it just stops. I've seen that. That's kind of a shame, but it's a minor complaint. I don't think that happens with these other ones, but it's good that they all have much more forgiving endings, and that's great. That is fantastic. And so, folks, that's it. Another 3 games, all very exotic, all very unique in their own way. Once again, I continue to be impressed by how they keep coming up with new, cool, fun stuff and not resting on their laurels, not just revisiting the same old, and giving you, a good, fun little trip in, an hour to an hour and a half play session. And that's it, folks. Unlock the Exotic series. I'm going to say thanks very much for watching. Have a very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye. Okay, you're still here. That means you don't care about some little spoilers. At this point, I don't remember what my spoiler was for this, but I'll just stitch on at the end. I'll say what the spoiler is for this. And again, it's not a spoiler. There comes a point where if you're paying attention, you'll notice, there's no clock on the screen anymore. And we honestly didn't even notice that. There's no countdown. And we thought, okay, there's still a countdown, right? It's just like, sometimes if the countdown goes on and warns you, hey, we're still keeping track. We figured they were still keeping track of time, and they just weren't showing us anymore as we continued to, travel through the adventure and solve puzzles and stuff like that. As near as I can tell, there is no clock. So that's why this is the greatest escape room ever, because not too far in, they jettison the clock, and you have all the time in the world to think and ponder and reflect and puzzle and just relax and enjoy it. I love real-time games, but man, I did not realize just how problematic they are. How they kind of rob. As soon as we played this and we realized, we have no time constraints, it's just the weight of the world comes off our shoulders. And bear in mind, we know we shouldn't pay attention. We know we should say, who cares about the score? Let's just have fun. We constantly tell ourselves that, but we can't help it. Human nature says, if there's a thing that's going to go, because you ran out of time, we try to beat the clock. When the clock disappeared here and we realized it, it made me realize, oh my gosh, I hope all escape room in your home games get rid of that stupid clock. The only reason that clock exists is because they're inspired by real world escape rooms. And in a real world escape room, you can't let people do it for 3 hours because you got to keep on getting people in and out so new ones can come in. These don't require timers. Just like video games no longer require you to pump quarters in them. We've been able to jettison that idea. Can we please jettison the timer idea for escape rooms? Or at the very least, say, hey, you know what? For hard difficulty, play and beat the timer. And for me and Jen, we'll just say, look, they've said normal difficulty means we don't have to play with a timer. Oh my God, that would be so amazing. Because we could just pause. We could whatever. I don't know. Like I said, I know you can just ignore the timer. And on most of these, you can even pause them as well. So you can ignore that. But there's just something so freeing and liberating when we realize the game doesn't care. The game is judging us by other metrics. So we can still try to succeed. We can still try to achieve. We don't want a cakewalk. We don't want this to just be, hey, let's just go through a series of cards, read some text, and get to the end. We want to be challenged. But in these man, it's going to be harder to deal with the fact that these are real-time challenges now, that we've been able to experience one without the real-time challenge, and it was so lovely. So anyway, that's kind of the minor spoiler here. Bear in mind, when the timer's off the screen, it's really gone. For this one, I totally forgot what it was, but I'm now just going to cut back to what I said before that I've cut out of that and I put here and say, okay, cool, enjoy that. Intro to folding. And it tells you how to fold stuff. And this is going to be the first time when you folded stuff. And while, if I want to give this game away, I'm going to hand it out. And, they'll still be able to play it. But they'll know as soon as they see this one thing, oh, we're going to have to fold this eventually. Because they see all the folds I put in it. And whatever that was, because I've got the mind of a goldfish at this point. Hopefully that was of some use to you as well. And once again, I say thanks very much for watching. Talk to you later. Have a nice day. So long. Bye-bye.